Oh, don't worry. Pat needs to be muted.
Okay.
So actually, all your mics are on at this minute, and they will all go off in a short while. So the way we're going to do this tonight is exactly the way we did this on Saturday. It worked extremely well, without any interruption. Because this is an hour-and-a-half session, what we will do, we will have a break session, which will only be for a very, very short while. So I want to do a full hour-and-a-half tonight. So a very short break session. And so what I would like to do is get everyone's feeling on the history and archaeology of Cymru, in brackets Wales, and it needs to be a brief introduction on what you feel.
Carl, we can't hear you very well.
Yeah, you've gone very quiet, Carl.
When you put the earphone on, we can't hear you.
Okay. Is that better?
No.
Oh, no.
No.
Right, is that better?
Yeah.
Right,
Yes.
all right then. I won't do the. Actually, you know what it is, right? The real reason you were lying then because you just wanted to see me without the headphones on. Particularly Del. Right, Del. When introducing the subject, the history and archaeology of Cymru, in a sentence, what does that mean to you?
Well, it means the proper history of Britain, which we're not taught. Full stop.
Okay, that's good. And you know, one thing I'll probably being unfair about is not having your cameras on, but that's the way it's set at this minute. What about you, Goff?
Well, I agree with Del. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Rosamond, what do you feel about the subject?
Oh, I'm excited to learn about the history of Wales, and to get the truth, like the last two people just said, and to learn more. Yes.
Good.
That's my thoughts.
We've just been joined by somebody new, but we'll introduce them in a minute. Right, what about you, Pam? What's your feelings on the subject?
It's more of a travel experience. It'd be north, west, south, and mid Wales, and the history and the archaeology.
Well, we start off a little bit about that tonight. We've sort of got a big overview, so that's where we're going to go. Okay. What about you, Gareth? How do you feel about the subject? Okay. Gareth, go for it. No? Okay. Is that cackle? It sounds like a witch.
Me.
Ellie, did you know your dad is a witch?
Yeah, he's far worse than a witch.
Yeah, we did hear about what you felt the other day. So, you know, when we introduce the subject, what do you feel about it?
Well, I don't really know anything about it, so I'm very interested in what it entails, and I think an overview is a very good place to start.
Thank you very much. And at this note, we have just been. What about you, Pat? Your mic's not on.
Well, I've lived here all these years, so I'm really wanting to make sure I'm up to date on the history. Being married to a history teacher, I've heard quite a bit. So.
And you've been married to me for a few years as well.
Yes.
We've been through the thick and thin of it, haven't we, Pat?
Yes.
And can I just say, Pat, am I looking really good tonight?
Yes, excellent.
That's all I needed. I expected Goff to say something along those lines, but anyway. So the only person is that we need to hear from quickly before we start is the one marked home.
Carl, that's me, Martin.
Right, okay, then we're only down one tonight then, and that was the chap from America. Apologies from Catherine, who has signed up for the course, and we've got apologies as well from Andrea, who's paid for the course, but she hasn't joined us. She wants to get the notes and stuff.
Catherine, is that Catherine, my friend, just to...
Oh, no, this is another Catherine. No.
Oh, okay.
No, they can't all be your friend.
Oh, never mind.
So on that note,
I'm hopeful.
I haven't heard from, so I would like to hear just one thing from Martin. When we talk about the history and archaeology of Wales, how do you feel about that, Martin?
Love it. It's all about the Wales.
And do you know what? On that moment, the only voice you're going to hear is mine. So,
Calon, heart.
what's that? Hand on heart.
Calon, heart. Loving the flag behind you, Carl.
I like it. Do you like the
Yeah,
flag?
that's cool, isn't it? I'm loving it.
We're loving it. We're going to do this. This is the Owen can do a flag. But we're not going to do nationalism tonight. We're just going to do the love of the land. So I'm going to mute you all now. So you're all muted. You're all left alone with me in a very dark room. So we are now going to start where we mean to begin. And what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to keep one of, like I did on Saturday. I had one person with me for the whole lecture, so I'm going to choose somebody who doesn't seem to have much going on in the background. So who can I choose to sort of make sure everything's flowing right? I think I will. Can Goff be annoying? Yeah, he'll be all right. Goff, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right, so what I want you to do, obviously you don't get any interferences your end. I want you to tell me now what you're seeing.
I'm seeing a slide.
And it says the archaeology and history of Cymru, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Are you seeing anybody else?
No, only you.
Do you know what? That's all I need to hear. Right. So, Michelle, my other half, we've been talking about me doing a class looking at the archaeology and history of Cymru, Wales, for some time. And we muted having this class about 2-3 weeks ago. And Goff and Dell were some of those who were first to hear about that. And it was decided that we go ahead and we have this little course, which is great. We've got over 10 people doing it, so I can't ask for any more. And these slides have been set, and basically they're a mix. They're all over the place. They're a massive jumble. And there's some in there that you're not going to understand why they're there unless I explain why they're there. Now, I would like to mention that we've got so much to go through over the next 8 weeks. And the areas I'd like to go through over the next weeks would be to look at native build castles, not the ones like Carnarvon, not the ones like Caerphilly, but the ones like Dolbaden and Droesloin. Those are the ones which we'll look at. We might look at a few traditional musical instruments like the bibgorn and the tabl. And we might look at some myths and legends associated with the Mary Lloyd, which I know a lot of you have heard about in regards to the myths and legends lectures that I've actually been giving. So the next slide that we're going to look at will be a brief timeline. And the brief timeline is a very strange timeline. So let's get to that next slide. How is it going so far, Goff?
Good.
Just
Get on with it.
Pardon?
Get on with it.
Get on with it. Like to hear it. So a brief timeline. Before we look at any images, because we look at 2 slides now, this one and the next one, and all the rest are basically images. I got 30 images to look at. It's not a massive amount, but I'll talk about each one. So I thought about a timeline. I was thinking about this at the allotment today. I thought, right, what do I put in a timeline? How do I do a timeline when we look at Cymru? That's how I'll refer to it, as Cymru, because that's what we are, people of the Cymru. The reason why I'm using that word Cymru is because the word Welsh, is a title given to us by the Saxons. It basically means foreigner. And I've just seen that we've been joined by 2 other people. So I'm going to let them in. Sorry about this. Peter, we're well into the lecture, so all mics are off, and we're basically into the lecture, but you haven't missed much. We just did the introductions, and we're just doing a timeline. And when we have the break, we can naturally chat about a few other things. So nice to meet you again, Peter. So let's go back to, I think Peter's the last one to join us now. So the timeline, when was Cymru? Lots of you have heard of when was Wales. It's something that historians have been talking about for a long time. What does Cymru, what does Wales mean? When did Wales or Cymru start? It's a very, very muted point. And we've got to say that 12,000 years ago, 12,000 years before present, the ice retreated. And when the ice retreated, the landscape of Cymru was revealed. And that landscape of Cymru was populated not by people, but populated by trees. Wave after wave of tree. And that's another lecture altogether. You get the small trees like the hazel, Midland hawthorn, those sort of, and holly as well. That's a great one. Those sort of great sort of colonizers, and they're coming over from Europe. I don't know how many of you are aware of J.R.R. Tolkien's work, Lord of the Rings, and they talk about the Ents and walking trees. In a way, the trees are walking over here. They're some are pollinate. Some have been spread via nuts and animals, moving those nuts and burying them, like the red squirrel, and others are rhizomic plants. Others, the seeds blow through the air, and gradually but surely, Britain becomes populated by trees, and Cymru being no exception. You could say that you would go from the land, not at this point, the island of the Isle of Man, and you'd go all the way down, and you go all the way, keep going, all the way, keep going, and go all the way down to Italy, and it would be all full of trees. And the next date on here, or distance in time, is 8,500 years before present. Britain became an island. Wales didn't become an island, but Britain became an island over 8,000 years ago. And when Britain becomes an island, those indigenous people that we find on some of those more remoter islands in Scotland, not Orkney, may I add, but some of those Hebridean islands, and some of the distant areas of Scotland and maybe Cornwall and Cymru, that sort of blood pool is developed from all those many generations in the past. And that blood pool is not just developed in those areas I've just described, those people who can trace their blood pool back thousands of years, but that blood pool is spread and retained in Britain because it's an island. This isn't a nationalistic lecture, it's just saying what it is. We become an island, and that's what happens. And isolated peoples. And those isolated peoples came over here when Britain was connected to Europe, and now Britain's no longer connected to Europe. But small numbers of people over generation after generation come over to Britain, and the blood stock moves around. The likes of those Bronze Age people that are to come, and the Iron Age people, and Roman populations, and Viking populations, and so on and so on. That's the intermeld of Britain. That's where it's always been. 7,000 years ago, Ireland became an island, and then everything develops. We have, after 7,000 years ago, we've got agriculture, we've got animal husbandry, we've got settlements, we've got all those wonderful things. We've got those wonderful buildings on Orkney, and then you come into standing stones and various chambers. You name it, it all occurs. And then 43 CE, not 43 before present, but 43 CE, basically, in other words, AD, nearly 2,000 years ago. And the word now is a very interesting word, now. When was Wales? When was Wales? When was Cymru? And I've answered it now. There it is. The reason why 43 is so important is because the Romans come over here, and it's the Romans who start to put boundaries on landscapes. They start to define who people are. The Dumnoni people of Cornwall, and the Eslugur of South Wales. And then you look at the Brigantes of the north, and they start to sort of categorize people. When you categorize people, you've got boundaries. And I know Pete, who's joined us tonight, loves his Cornwall. But at that moment, because of the Romans, you've got those boundaries really being set in, various rivers and things. And that's when kingdoms and countries start to be created. And then we got the 400s. Kingdoms of Cymru started to form. Kingdoms of Cymru, what does that exactly mean? Well, this is 300 this is 370, this is 400 years after Roman civilization starts to be on its wane in Britain. And kingdoms of Cymru start to form. You've got the kingdom of Deheubarth in West Wales, and you've got the developing kingdoms of Powys, and you've got the developing kingdoms of Gwynedd, and you've got the developing kingdom of Gwent and Morgannwg, and so on and so on. And these kingdoms start to develop. These are princely kingdoms. They do their own thing, you know. Basically, the kingdoms of Cymru are like living in the South Wales valleys, like the Ferndale Valley, right? They keep to themselves. These are those types of kingdoms, and they might have a bit of a fight with another kingdom over there, right? But other than that, we're very much independent. We're very much insular, and this is what makes the character. This is the developing character of the Cymraeg. This is the developing character of the Cymraes. I'm using different names to describe Wales, Cymru, and then we got other things like the 450s. We got Ogham, but rather interesting script on stones, carved on stones, or a little bit before. It's the development of writing, it's the development of carved writing. And lots of these things that we're talking about now, I actually go into. I will be going over into, like today and over the other 7 weeks included in this course. And the 500s, what happened here? I wonder if Martin is screaming out at this point. Martin saying, Arthur, King Arthur, it's got to be King Arthur. And to be honest with you, let's not be disappointed. We will be looking and touching upon King Arthur. We will be sort of mentioning Carl-James. We'll be mentioning those princes that are linked to the King Arthur. Legend, myth, fact, reality, whatever you want to call it. So we'll be doing that. And the 550s, what happened at Dinas Powys? Now, that's really interesting. We've got a place name there, Dinas Powys, in the Vale of Glamorgan, between Cardiff and Swansea. Weird little village, strange today. We've got one slide that sort of illustrates what happens at Dinas Powys in the 550s. And then the 600s, the fun begins. Not so long, you get something like called the Elysig Pillar up in northeast Wales. And the fun begins. And the reason why the fun begins is this is where we develop. This is when we start building early forms of motte and bailey castles. And this is where we start building defended earthworks. And this is where we start having proper little villages and roads and stuff and all the rest of it. And we're not talking about Britain. We're talking about Cymru now. We've been talking about Cymru since 43 CE. And then continued Bingo, there's a nice name. 942 to 948. CE, Hywel Dda. Archaeologists use the word CE because if you're not religious, if you're a Muslim, if you're a pagan, if you're a witch or whatever, and you don't use AD, you use CE. It's just common era. It's just a replacement for the term AD. So we got Hywel Dda. Who is Hywel Dda? Well, he's a great statesman. He's a great friend of the English. The Saxons, I should say. And when I say he's a great friend, basically the English recognize him as not just a prince, but the king of Cymru. The king of most of the area of modern day assumed Wales. And this is Hywel Dda. And then you've got 1066, the 25th of December, Chepstow now. When was Cymru? When was Wales? Now, because in 1066, on the 25th of December, William I was coronated king of the whole land. When I say the whole land, I mean England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. He owns the land. So from that moment onwards, you can't have an autonomous prince in Cymru because the English are saying so. But in fact, we always felt ourselves to be independent. You know, you tell Cadogan in the 1400s that he's English, and he'll cut your head off with an axe, wouldn't he, Martin? And then what I'm trying to say is 1066 to 1282 is a very interesting period. Llywelyn ap Iorwerth, who's not on his chart, is Llywelyn ap Iorwerth the Great. And then by 1282, the 11th of December, death of Llywelyn ap Gruffydd. And then at that moment, our hearts bleed and our hearts sink and our hearts are decimated because this is the last true prince of a unified Cymru. And then we're going to start using that term Wales. 1400s, the Welsh rebel. Wales declares itself independent. Those foreign brigands over the Offa's Dyke claim to be independent. And the Welsh don't call themselves the Welsh, they call themselves the people of Cymru again. But to the English, we're the foreigners, we're those Welsh. On the 16th of September, Owain Glyndwr declares an independent, free Cymru. He is now the king. He becomes the true leader, elected leader of Cymru in 1404. Parliaments are held, but that's another talk. 1485, 22nd of August, the Great Betrayal. The damnable Henry. Henry, who defeats Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth. It's the Great Betrayal because Henry is of stock of the houses of Gwynedd. He's of Welsh stock. He's of stock of the people of Cymru. And he turns his back on our land, and it's a backwater. All the remaining laws that had been established by Hywel Dda, bit by bit under the Tudors, all of those laws are ripped up. We cease to be recognized as anything other than damnable. And no more Wales, no more Cymru, no more sense of independence. We're a backwater until 1790, Edward Williams, Iolo Morgannwg. Iolo Morgannwg rediscovers who we are. And then 2020, today, that's where we are. So the first image we're going to look at is a place that I know some of you have visited with me. And there it is, St. Peter's Church. And I know Martin's been there. Who else has been there? Pam has been there. And I'm not sure many others of you have been there. Maybe Dell. I think Pat may have been there. St. Peter's Church. Now,
Carl?
St. Peter's Church. Goff, are you hearing me okay?
Yeah?
Have you been here, Goff?
Pardon? No.
You haven't. And I can hear a giggle in the background, so there's somebody else with them.
I don't remember being there. And I wanted to tell you, your screen, we're seeing the whole, instead of the slideshow, we're seeing the things on the side, you know,
Okay.
the little ones. So I don't know if you want to go to slideshow, and then we could have the whole screen be the picture.
Okay. Let's go to slideshow. Do you know what?
From current slide, yeah.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Okay. There we are. That's better.
Okay. Unfortunately,
You went too far. Going the wrong way.
bingo. And you know, Pat,
There.
you've increased the experience tonight, so thank you very much.
Okay.
So who was talking? Pat, so you've been here, yeah?
I don't remember being there.
But you
Sorry.
haven't been here, Goff, no?
No, where is it?
Now, what we're going to do, because this is an overview tonight, I'm going to have to describe. So if you've got an old rugged map of Wales, Cymru, this is basically at the foothills of the South Wales valleys. This is near this. If you want to set the scene, it's between Llantrisant and Bridgend. It's south of Tonnerevile, and it's north of Cowbridge. So it's in that sort of weird landscape.
Stradowin.
It's north of Stradowin, yeah, much further north of Stradowin. And one thing about this site is part of the battle of identity. When you think about what Wales is and what Wales isn't, and when we talk about the battle of identity, this place was bought in the 1980s by two Arthurian experts called Blackett and Wilson. And when they bought this site, they believed that this was the burial place of King Arthur. And part of the problem when we talk about Cymru and the history and archaeology is that there's a great deal hidden. And there's a backstory with this church. And the backstory is that whether King Arthur was buried here or not, because there's a set written history of Cymru, it's almost as if the experts don't really want to entertain anyone else's view. And this is where we go next. And lots of the slides that we're seeing today, we will come back. Lots of these slides will make up little miniature talks in the future. So don't be worried that I've missed something or missed everything. But a few years ago, I was in Abergavenny. And there's a little sign up on a brick wall in Abergavenny. It reads, "To the ways of the British nation, betrayed, denied, and forgotten, cast into oblivion as if they never was or never were. This year of shame and infamy, 2003. And the reason why this has been placed up there is probably a lot to do with the last Gulf War. But there's something more poignant about this plaque. I know people in Cornwall would say the same, and people in Scotland would say the same. People who are very nationalistic in Northumberland and Cymru and other parts of the land, they would say that their sense of being and who they are, who are we, who they are, has been lost and forgotten. And in the late 1600s, a historian called Edward Lloyd was commissioned, along with lots of other historians in Britain, to come up with a history and archaeology of the land that was unifying. So in other words, any traditions like the Mary Lloyd was to be stamped upon. Any traditions like the Maypole would sort of be hopefully forgotten. So what we're talking about an overall history that we're all the same. So, and the idea was it would create a sense of Britishness. So anyone else's view, any other history or archaeology out there was to be ignored and forgotten. Now, I think there's only two people who will have come across this place. It's known as Cefn yr Hom at Tonapandi. And Cefn yr Hom is the epitome of the landscape. When I use the word landscape, I'm referring to Cymru. So you don't need to question that again. And Cefn yr Hom is likely to be connected with the old monastery at a location where I live today, or near that location, known as Penrhys. There was a great monastic landscape here. And I'm going to go off on a tangent, unfortunately, and I do apologize. And the tangent is that at one time there were pre-Norman monasteries across the whole of Cymru. There were pre-Norman monasteries across England and Cornwall and Scotland and so on and so on. And then what happened is that slowly but surely, as the Normans gained a hold on the landscape, they sent the monastic orders forth to get rid of the ones that were already there. And the reason why I've gone off in a tangent is that one thing that me and a colleague are doing in Barry are researching a new history of the town of Barry. There's a really important point here. All history books in Barry end in around 400 AD, and they don't start again until 1100. Nothing happened in the middle. Nothing happened in Cymru at all. There was no Christianity in Cymru. Nobody lived here. This is what most of the history books say, which is a shame, because the land that I live in the Rhondda Valleys, alongside Gareth and alongside Martin, the Valleys is a landscape that is so full of history. It's so unbroken. And we've got an early Christian history as well. And it's very likely that this building here in front of us, known as Cefn yr Hom, is actually directly at the place where the monastery may have actually had some kind of mill. This was a monastic mill, and this monastic mill may have gone all the way back to the 900 AD or 1000 AD, well before the Normans. And then we get the Lady of Penrhys and all that type of history. And I know Martin wants me to chuck this in here, which I'm probably not going to mention again. But this landscape at Tonapandi and Penrhys, a large extended monastic landscape, was home to an Eisteddfod that was held associated and in tribute in the love of Owain Glyndŵr, if I can get any less nationalistic. And I know Martin is absolutely smiling now, because lots of the slides that we see today are associated with South Wales, Rhondda Valley. The reason why it's a good place to start, because it's a good place to start painting the picture before we start to understand West Wales and before we start to understand Gwynedd and the castles up there. We start to try and understand the wonderful Croggan Oak up in northeast Wales, because the story across the land is very similar. It's so easy to do a lecture on Cymru because there's formulas, and the formulas are occasional standing stones, okay, which have different meanings. We've got the odd native castles, We've got the odd weird settlements, which go all the way back to the Iron Age and beyond. We've got weird trees, ancient trees, and various different levels of religious ground, and so on and so on. And as the dusts blow around, each one of those bits of dust grains tells a story. This is at Carn Idol. Now this is the epitome of the whole series of lectures. Rhondda the Ferndale Valley. And again, when we look at all the sites, we will show you a map. And this in the Rhondda Valley is sort of in the lesser Rhondda Valley. The Ferndale Valley is basically at the top of that valley, and it's just basically a weird tump, and there's some weird stones on it, and it's never ever been recognised as an archaeological monument. And the reason why it's the epitome of Wales is because so much out there hasn't been recorded and hasn't been rightly understood and hasn't been rightly recognised and hasn't been rightly given the love and understanding that these sites should be given. And looking at the prehistory is, as I say, rather interesting, rather dynamic. And in amongst lots of that wooded landscape that once existed, when those trees were felled, these monuments in the Neolithic period, which takes us back over 6,000 years, in the Bronze Age over 4,000 years, these stone monuments really get to the root of the landscape and the real bloodline of where we need to see and understand. I like the headline on this one, because one thing I don't want to do is just ignore completely the Normans and their monasteries and everything that they've created. We're not going to do Norman castles, them at all. But again, when you do go to places in Wales, you start to see the archaeology almost disregarded. Whatever archaeology it is, whether the Normans built it or unless you're a Norman castle, because they're loved. And this is a rather interesting one. Just briefly, in Usk, we had an expedition to Usk not so many years ago. And when we had an expedition to Usk, we went into the church graveyard, and there was this stone, and it's a tombstone associated with a prioress, and it's just dumped in the church graveyard. It may sort of be associated with a Norman monastic order, but again, it's just dumped in the church graveyard, and it's a wonderful stone, and you're thinking, well, there's not many of these out there. Why isn't it given some protection? And I'm not going to say any more. Now, it would be unfitting of me. It would be of a sense of remiss that when we take us on this journey over the next few weeks is to completely ignore the Romans. And the reason why is because it's at AD 43 that we can really start to see boundaries being put in place. As I said, the Romans being able to, the Romans put in boundaries, not physical boundaries, but boundaries on a map and sort of, and so on, so that they could raise taxes amongst the people of Cymru. And this is what's going on. You know, no such different place. You know, it's a bit like Cornwall. You know, they needed to know these people up there. You know, Martin knows my thoughts on this. That the name Silures is not the name ever given to the people of South Wales by the people of South Wales. It was a developed name from the Roman sense of the landscape that they gave to the people. You know, individual tribe. There were so many tribes in the area that the Romans couldn't count them. So they said, right, we'll give them this name, and that's where the name Silures developed. But this isn't in South Wales. This is a Roman site in Gwynedd, on the north-western coast of Gwynedd, north of Harlech, and south of Porthmadog. And Tomon y Mur is a rather interesting site. And why is it interesting? Please ask me, Goff, why is it interesting? Why is it relevant?
Well,
Goff,
since you asked, mostly, why is it so interesting?
because when you go there, Goff, right, you expect just to see a Roman fort and the reconstructions of a Roman fort. But then you look over in the corner and what you see is a mound. And that mound itself is a mound that is directly built on a palace, a llys, of the Welsh princes of Gwynedd. There's a palace there. And what happens is that when Roman civilization collapses across the whole of Britain, the princes of the area and the sub-princes see this Roman fort and they think, brilliant, building material. Let's build a palace there. And this is being built in about the 600s, tying in with that date I gave earlier on. So the date around the 600s. And they build a palace there, right? And you don't hear about this. You don't hear about it. Nobody tells you about this until you're there and it's on a little sign. Over there is a really important site in brackets, alongside these Roman remains. And that's so important that I mention that today, because it links us into Caerleon. Because back in 1926 in Caerleon, the archaeologist Sir Mortimer Wheeler excavated a Caerleon, and he went down and dug directly down to the amphitheatre. And nothing that was after the Romans was recorded. And just think, if that could have been a place associated with the Arthurian legends, but we will never know now because that information was destroyed at that Roman site by an archaeologist just wanted to get to the Roman information. But at this site, the archaeologists have found the continuity of the landscape, the links with those early Welsh princes. There's a proper llys palace there, under the surface, the humps and bumps of it. Oh, gone too far. And you see the mound in the distance on this image. You can certainly see that. And it's confusing why the mound was built. Some say it was built by the Welsh princes there. Some say the credit for building that mound was actually because of the Normans, but I think that was built by the Welsh princes in response to the changes in the landscape. And so what you can see there is Roman, native, Welsh princely landscape. And it's beautiful. And it's a really nice place to go to. But I haven't taken a class there because it's one of those secrets I want to keep to myself. But maybe one day. And I know the wonderful Martin is shouting at this stage to get to the next slide. Do I twiddle my fingers? No, I don't. Pen Rhys Well. There it is. That links me with the mill that we looked at earlier on. And the mill itself at Tonapandi is part of this monastic landscape at Pen Rhys. You know, I could walk to that mill from my house, and I could walk to Pen Rhys Well House. It's over there. I can see it at night. I can see a little light there, and the Lady of Pen Rhys, and there's a cross and everything there. And this is all that's left of that monastic landscape, really, and the mill as well. There's a little bit there, and I think Wales is so full of springs and wells, so full of a sense of differentness. And when we do look at, for example, Mary Lloyd, and some of you come to my Some of you come to my myths and legends lectures, and ghosts on a Saturday. You'll hear me talk about water, and you'll hear me talk about the Ceffyl Dŵr, if you can ever escape me mentioning the Ceffyl Dŵr in any lecture, because water's so important. You know, jokes aside, we've got a lot of water in Wales. It rains a lot in Wales, and it's very important. You know, mills are very important, springs are very important, water courses are very important. Moving on. Oh, that's the Mary Lloyd. And there is me with the Mary Lloyd. Do you know what, right? That image to me is the epitome of what the myths and legends are about in Cymru, right? I didn't know that photograph was being taken, but you can see a right smile on my face. I'm talking to this skull with somebody underneath it, and I'm having a proper conversation, right? And I'm talking to the horse, and I'm giving it some bread, and I'm thanking it for being here. And you know what? That moment, I can remember I felt that I was actually talking to something real. I know that sounds bonkers, right? That sounds absolutely mad, but it's not, because I feel connected. You know, I feel connected with what's out there. And the whole point is to be connected with that landscape. You know, I'll mention Peter again, who's nicely joined us tonight. And I really appreciate him joining us tonight, because Peter's got a massive love of Cornwall. He's more nationalistic than any nationalistic person I've come across in Wales. You know, he's got insulting names for the English, the Ents. And he said, this is my land. And in a way, Cornwall is more nationalistic than us. It loves its sites a lot more than we do. But our traditions are coming back, you know, and what I want to do, you don't need my ghosts and legends lecture to hear the images and what these legends are about in Wales. There's a chap who I know called Brian Ketch, and he told me about this weird game that used to be played in the Vale of Glamorgan that's become extinct. It's like a bit of a weird game with a hockey stick. And they used to play it, and people stopped playing, and those games just disappeared. And again, we will be looking at these little weird things like the Mary Lloyd and proper images about the Ceffyl Dŵr. Not the Mary Trevelyan stuff that we do on Saturday, but something rather different. We got a slide in the wrong sequence there, but that's Tom and Amur Lost Baths. And you know what? Medieval coins found in the Vale of Glamorgan. Do you know what? It's lovely looking at silver coins. And these silver coins were actually found by one metal detector enthusiast in one area of the Vale of Glamorgan. The archaeology of the Vale of Glamorgan. The archaeology of Cymru. And they're all Norman French coins, simply because we never really needed to produce our own coins. We never needed to produce them. You know, even into the reign of Llywelyn ap Iorwerth, we're unaware that we've actually created any coins, because we didn't need them, because there was enough coins over the border in circulation. Why do we need to waste any money minting any more coins? There is one leader that minted coins in Cymru. And when we have our break in a short while, the question will be, which leader of Cymru actually produced his coins? And it may have been somebody else in the history of our land. But artifacts, our landscape isn't just steeped with artifacts of coins. It's steeped with artifacts of pottery. It's steeped with artifacts of weird little tree stumps that you find in the Rhondda Valley. Isn't it, Martin? It's full of weird little artifacts from North Wales in the form of pottery that may have been used by the princes strange little military artifacts in West Wales, arrowheads and so on. All these little things creep in there into the lectures. And actually, I think at this point, it's 8:22. We started at 7:36. I think we're halfway, but we'll mention a little bit about this site. Castle Nos in the Rhondda Valley. Again, back to the Rhondda Valley. It's a beautiful, enigmatic site. And I think that there is what's left of a tower, a collapsed wall at Castle Nos. Back to Castle Nos again. This site was once in a wooded landscape. It commanded a wooden landscape towards the south and towards the north, but the open valley, sort of rich plains in front of it, beautiful rich plains, and those beautiful rich plains themselves would have been full of agriculture, would have been a place that the people who lived at Castle Nos could command. This isn't a Norman site. This is a site built by a Welsh lord, a lord of Cymru. And it's a sad sight. It's a sad indictment that all we have is little bits of crumbled walls, which almost seem lost amongst the various edifices of those Norman castles. And unfortunately, I haven't avoided getting nationalistic tonight. And if that's offended a couple of you, I do apologize, but it's difficult to give a lecture like this without being a little bit nationalistic. So what we're going to do, we're going to stop sharing. And what I'd like now is you all to put your cameras back on. I will unmute you all. You're all being unmuted one by one. Unmute, unmute, unmute. Well, there's some of you haven't unmuted, okay? So, okay, I'm gonna get all your videos on. Give me a sec if I can. Some of you, well, I haven't been able to get most of your videos back, but here we go. Ask to start video. There we go. I'm asking you now if you want to start your video. We'll have a quick chat.
Okay.
Take a break. There are other people here tonight. But so we can see you, Ellie. We can see Rosamond. And nobody else. But if you don't want to be seen, and Gareth, anyone want to say anything about what I've said?
Yes, Carl.
Yeah.
Who's first?
Ladies first.
Oh, I was going to ask about the Tomin Moor, was it?
Tomin Moor, yeah.
Is that similar to Silbury Hill?
Tomin means mound. Now, Silbury Hill is rather interesting, and there's also the Marlborough Mound, and there's also another mound in northern England. Basically, what used to, this is archaeology and history and understanding all over. What's usually assumed is that anything that's a mounded site, a Motte Bailey site, like the one at Tomin Moor, is always assumed to have been constructed by the Normans. It was once thought that Marlborough Mound was constructed by the Normans, and Silbury Hill may have been constructed by the Normans. But then they start to look into it. Those are prehistoric mounds. But Tomin Moor was constructed after the Roman period, so it's very different. But you can assume that when you come to the wrong conclusions, you can understand the history and archaeology in a very wrong way. Right, okay, Martin.
Yeah, just a bit more on Castell Nos and the area there, right opposite, on the ridge opposite where you had the windmills.
Yes.
When they excavate the groundworks to implant those windmills, they found 10 ancient timbers, and they're 6,250 years old, and it's the oldest carved timbers found in the whole of Europe. And one of them is now in St. Fagans on show.
Oh, it's on show at St. Fagans. How absolutely wonderful.
6,250 years old carved timber.
Absolutely.
Oldest ever found in Europe. In
Do you know what
Mardi.
you've been talking about?
Back garden.
Well done. That's a result. You've been talking about that being placed on display for a very, very long time. Right. Does anyone else want to say anything before we have a quick break?
You didn't mention Harold's mother coming to Flatholm after 1067, did you?
Actually, to be honest with you, I haven't mentioned a million things, Peter.
I know.
Right.
You didn't. Well, we forgot about St. Caddoc and all those.
But they are Norman.
Oh.
That was the 6th century.
But they came over. What saints were here before those ones?
And St. Baruch and all them.
We will no doubt have some food for thought over the next few weeks on that. Anyone else want to say something else, and we'll have a quick break? No? Okay, we'll have a break. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'll entertain you with a little ditty I had today.
What's that, Pete? I was just running upstairs to wake Michelle.
When this is all over, a little ditty I was given today.
I tell you what, you're going to read that ditty when we start up after the break.
Oh, I was going to do it during the break. There you are.
All right, read it to everybody in the break. I'm going to run upstairs.
Okay. When this is all over and sanity is restored, don't take life for granted as we did before. When this is all over and the clouds will all clear, take hold of your loved ones and hold them all dear. When this is all over and we hear the birds sing, listen to their melodies and the joy that they bring. When this is all over and children can play, let them be wild and free and make up for lost days. When this is all over, remember the brave and the countless lives that they have saved. So that was a little ditty I had come to me today.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Well, yes. So if you're all old enough, this is another one. Talking about back in the day of tanners and bobs. Back in the day of tanners and bobs, mothers had patience, fathers had jobs. Football teams had hand-me-down shoes. TV had only 2 channels to choose. Back in the day of tuppenny bits, schools employed nurses to search for your nits. No walls were armless and slides were permitted. Our warm woolen jumpers were always hand-knitted. Back in the day of hot ginger beers, and children remained so for more than 6 years. Back in the day, children respected what older folks said, and pot was a thing you had under the bed. Back in the day, while listening with mothers, neighbors were friendly and talked to each other. Cars were so rare you could play in the street. Doctors made house calls and police walked the beat. Back in the day of Milligan's goons, butter was butter, and songs had tunes. Back in the day, of dumplings for dinner and trifle for tea, and an annual break was a day by the sea. Back in the day of Dixon and Dock Green and Cracker Jack pens and Lion's ice cream. when children could freely wear national health glasses and teachers stood in front of the classes. Back in the day of rocking and reeling, a mobile was something you hung from the ceiling. When woodwork and pottery were taught in schools and everyone dreamed of a win on the pools. Back in the day when I was a lad, I can't help smiling at the fun that I had. Hopscotch and roller skates, snowballs back to lob. Back in the days of tanners and bobs. I don't know if you heard it, but that was
Thank you.
a little bit of back in the day. If you're old enough to remember those things. Carl's not, I know.
Thanks a lot.
Only a boy.
Pat, you still there? All right, that's okay. Okay, we're nearly there.
You're looking very tidy tonight, Carl.
Well, you know, I make an effort for, you know, this is the.
I was going to say you're not the bloody scruffy that we usually see you on a Tuesday night.
This is the creme de la creme.
Now on Tuesday night you have to improve.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to improve for John. You know, you know when I've been doing the presentation this evening, right? Have you been able to see me or not?
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. Sadly, yeah.
Oh Christ, you can still see me, even picking my nose. Right? Okay, that's fine. Well, how are you, Pam?
I'm fine. Yes.
Good.
Still picking your nose.
No, I'm doing this. That's not picking my nose.
It's all red and shiny now.
Oh, I'm going off. I've had enough of these bumming insults.
Should be used to it by now.
By the way, right? Michelle wants to know if you can give me away, Pete.
I can give you away.
Yeah.
To what?
Michelle's been keeps looking at me saying, "When are you going to marry me?" I can't see why. Would you marry me, Pete?
What's that?
Would you marry me, Pete?
Not particularly, no.
I'm not even going to ask Rosamond. Tom will hit me.
Oh yes.
He's definitely gone. We've lost him.
Ooh.
He was supposed to be married last November on Flatdome.
He's eating his dinner, I think, Peter.
What's that?
I think he's eating his dinner.
Yeah. I'm watching my blue tit in the nest sitting on 6 eggs. I've got a camera in the nesting box.
Ah, good.
Now, every now and again, she turns them over.
Oh.
Pete, what kind of bird is that on the nest?
Blue tit.
Ah, lovely.
Oh, yes.
How many eggs?
6.
Wow.
She had 7 last year.
Hmm.
How many survived?
Only, but last year she had laid 7 eggs, and only 5 of them actually survived. 2 of the chicks died.
That's good. 5.
Mm.
Does she come every year?
Well, it seems to, yes. That last year was the first year I had the camera in the nesting box,
Hmm.
and we had it in the winter. There was one coming in during the winter and overwintering in there, and roosting in there at night.
Hmm.
And then they built the nest during the day, and she had 7 eggs. And like I said, they all hatched, but two of the chicks sadly died. I think it was because she just couldn't feed 7 all of at the same time virtually. So 2 of them failed through malnutrition, I would think. And this year she's got 6 eggs.
Is it on a tree, the nesting box?
No, it's the nesting box is on the side of my summer house.
Right.
It's down the bottom of the garden.
Wow.
Talking about nesting boxes, I've got to interrupt and we've got to get back to it. Right, I got to admit, right, in the background next week, everyone's got to have some kind of Welsh flag. Gareth done it. I've done it, you know. So, yeah.
Oh, fair enough.
All right, you got really started it now. Right. So I'd like to say I'm hoping that you will all join me next week. And the area that we're going to be looking at next week, we'll be looking at. We're not looking at Cornish flags, okay?
Oh.
Next week, I think it'd be a good bash to look at something big like the native castles of Cymru. So that's what we're going to be looking at next week. I know that's at the top of the bill, right? And I know I shouldn't be doing that next week, but that's what we're going to do next week. So it sort of gives us that. And basically, at the end of this tonight, we'll obviously ask if there's any other questions. And I would like to mention just a couple of things. If anyone is interested in our Myths and Legends lecture this week on Saturday at 7:30, we'll be looking at UNE. And the person that we'll be talking about actual time travel is me, because I had a very weird experience there, not so long ago. So that's what we're doing this week. So on Saturday, UNE, if anyone's interested. Anyone want to ask anything at the end, if they want a nice chat about anything, because everyone on Saturday just disappeared. Nobody wanted to chat with me and talk to me about anything. So if anyone wants to say anything, say it now, because in about 10 seconds we're starting. No? Okay, good.
No.
Thank you to Pete for reading the poetry. We're going to mute you all. And you know what? It's so good. It's so good to talk about myself, right? Nobody can give me any back chat. Goff loves me. This is why he likes to introduce me to his daughters. But and then Martin likes me introducing to his other friends and all these other things. And I'm so amazing. I know I look good. Thanks for saying that, Peter. But now let's get on with the rest of the lecture. So, and I really appreciate wonderful Pat telling me to press the button about the slideshow, which I'm going to try to get back onto now. Right, okay. Pat, can you help me out here in a minute?
To the present slide.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So if we go back a bit. Okay, right, here we go. Good. You know what? In all the years I've been presenting on, I never use this package. But obviously I've learned something tonight. Thank you very much. So I think where we ended before the break, and we will go until about we'll go now until about say about 10:15, if that's okay, so everybody gets their money's worth. So I think the main thing about where we're starting now is to begin where we left off. And Martin said about some wonderful archaeology that is, and I just realized I'm not screen sharing, am I? Am I screen sharing? Hello?
No, no, you're not. No.
No.
Okay.
I have no idea what you just said.
This is what happens when you have a break. So mute all.
Are you using?
Yeah, well, I've sorted it out now. I didn't. This is the problem when you have a break. You lose your continuity. Stop video and video and right, okay. And now we are sharing. Okay, I'm going to go back to that there. Good. And are you with me, Goff? Are you with me, Goff? Right.
Yes.
What are you seeing now?
I see a picture.
Good, and it's all clear. Thank you very much. I was saying that when you're I want to leave start off where we left, and Martin's saying that, you know, about these wonderful timbers that were found very close to this site, and those wonderful timbers, one of them now being displayed at the Welsh Folk Museum at St Fagans, which is great. And I think when I went to see the last display at the Folk Museum at St Fagans, which was a couple of months ago, it was great and very refreshing that they had a whole gallery just dedicated to the real history of Cymru. It was so refreshing. And there were one or two carved stones associated with Llewellyn, lots of wonderful artifacts just associated with Made in Wales brand. It was so good. Next slide. This. Why have we got, I told you this unusual series of lectures, why have we got a Second World War watchtower as part of a POW camp? And again, this is all part of the history of our landscape. You know, we've gone through 2 major world wars. We've got the Napoleonic War and so on. And people from our land were involved in those wars. And I just thought, as a little bit of a snapshot, it's not just about the Iron Age, it's not just about the medieval period and so on. It's also about more recent times. It's also more about that sort of social history. But artifacts like this have become the archaeology of now. You know, those pillboxes up and down the coastline. And Peter would like me to mention Flatholm. It's all sort of part of this very rich tapestry of our land. And you can't not mention sites such as these. And it's a very, very rare building, because it's unlikely that any of you have ever seen this. And this is the only remaining watchtower standing at the Atlantic Trading Estate in Barry. There were dozens and dozens of these at one point, and these were very important as part of the war effort. And I know that one of our members, a chap by the name of Hugh Trivett, has been out there recording lots of the planes that have crashed all the way up and down Wales. Again, that's part of our heritage. That's part of our past. So it's a very much of a mixed bag. And this is a very interesting slide to have in here. This slide shows the remains of the medieval city at Trellick in southeast Wales. This is near Chepstow. It's very much near Monmouth as well. And Trellick itself is the place of a medieval city. And it's a city, this itself was the biggest city in Cymru in around the 1250s, 1260s. It was a hugely important site. It was the largest populated area in the whole principality. and it was dedicated to iron. And iron itself is again key to our consciousness. Many thousands of people across the principality who are used to iron working would have been at this site. It was sort of established by the Normans, but lots of those people here would have been from that background. And it's also said that this city of Trellick was attacked many times, but this holds the same fate as many locations across Wales. By about 1349, this was a site that had been hit by the plague so dramatically that we can only say that between 80 and 90% of the population of Cymru was wiped out due to the Black Death in 1349. It was catastrophic to our population. And as a people, as a landscape, we never ever recovered from that. And it's worth mentioning that. It's worth I wanted to put lots of little bits in this opening lecture. It's very bitty tonight, I know, but I wanted to put lots into it. But we haven't forgotten North Wales. That's coming up. And again, there's a team from Archaeology Cymru excavating at Trellick. But before we get on to North Wales, that's Droeslwyn Castle. If anyone's ever been to Carreg Cennen, if anyone's ever been to the Welsh Gardens, they will be aware of Droeslwyn. And Droeslwyn itself is a castle that was constructed by a prince of our land. And it's a very enigmatic site. It's so enigmatic that when you go up there, you not only get the castle, you have the remains of a little town there as well, and you get all the humps and bumps. A little town which was established by the princes of this area of Wales. And that town is not a Norman town. Like this is a Norman castle. It's a native town. It had people who were traders who were local, trading in local goods, bartering in local ways, speaking in the native language. And this is being built in the late 1100s, 1200s. And the interesting thing about this structure itself is that it was being built when lots of Norman castles were being built in the border areas of Cymru. And certainly when lots of castles are being built in South Glamorgan, for example, Iwerne, Newcastle, Coetir, Ogmore, they were Norman castles, some of them built on native princely sites, native lord sites. But Droeslwyn is being built at the same time. So it's that sort of stark contrast between what's going on. And the picture is very confusing. And those great towers there, they look powerful. They're on a craggy rock. And that's another thing you could say, is that this landscape that we talk about is built using the landscape. You know, we don't need to build huge Motte and Bailey castles, you know, built on artificial mounds. Thanks for putting that in there, Rosamond. We didn't need to do that. We just found ideal localities to build places such as this, like Dinas Powys Castle. Dinas Powys Castle, which we mentioned way at the beginning, is actually a castle, and the walls, most of those walls, were built by a native lord. And it's quite quaint. You go there and you look and you think, oh, look at those steps, native steps of the tower there. You know, the gentleman's tower. That's what Cymraes means, male tower, the male built castle. And you look at that and you think I'm actually looking at something that's not Norman. I'm looking at something that we were capable of doing. We were capable of building these things. I'm not saying this was anything like Castle Nos, because the people who are building sites in this area had a lot more money and influence than the isolated Ferndale Valley and the isolated Tonopandi Valley, for example. This is an area of Cymru which has got a vast agricultural landscape, which you can just see slightly in the distance. And you can see it clearly there. This round tower, you know, this castle has got square towers, it's got round towers, it's got various different rooms and sort of strange sets of architecture and so on. And this again dominates the landscape. And again, remembering that in the back of your mind, when we do castles next week, you've got to remember the key formula. Most of the castles built in Cymru were built in isolated localities, built using the terrain, built using rocky outcrops. And they didn't always build gateways because they didn't really need them. Nor Welsh castle has certain formulas which makes it different from Norman castles that we're going to actually look at next week. If you want to mention Castell Morgraig, I'm not going to forgive you. Well, I am going to forgive you because Castell Morgraig has a strange history. Nobody really knows whether it was built by a Welsh prince or a Norman lord. And we're strangely back. Now we've done all the nationalistic stuff. We're strangely back to St. Peter's Church. And we're back to St. Peter's Church because it sort of settles things out again. Away from sort of King Arthur. It paints the, again, more of the landscape, just like the castle that we've looked at, taking advantage of the isolation of the landscape, and then some of the flat landscapes of agriculture, and in the upland areas as well. I'm not saying that they didn't have agriculture in the upland areas, because they did, but it was a very harsh life, and you usually see this by small buildings like St. Peter's with a small village around it, and it's usually that these churches were disused because, you know, the community got smaller and smaller, and it's really difficult to eke a living out of the landscape. One thing that can be said is in the medieval period, these upland landscapes, there was more soil to plant crops because the trees have only just been cut down and the temperature was different. It was warmer back then. But when you go to St. Peter's on a real cold day and it's really windy and it's really wet, the last place you want to be is St. Peter's. But that gives you an idea of the hardiness of the land. You know, when you go to St. Peter's, this is all that you see. And a few walls around the outside. There's a few tombstones around as well. And we're not going to go into what happened at the church in any detail. But put it this way, more was there in the 1980s. And because they didn't want people going there, because it was purchased by Black and Wilson, the Arthurian experts, and the Arthurian Society as it was then, local farmers ripped down the fence around the outside, started damaging the walls, knocking over the gravestones, because they didn't want people going there and to be the focus of the Arthurian legend, myth or legend. So again, painting that very sad picture of our land. But what isn't sad is this. You can tell by the caption, again, we're back in the Rhondda Valley. Again, I did apologize for the obsession, but next week we're going to be looking at Dolforwyn. In Powys, we're going to be looking at Dalbadan Castle up in North Wales. So there's a lot of North Wales stuff next week. So that's where it's balanced. I love this site. I really did. This is at Blaen Rhondda. This is the Iron Age settlement of Blaen Rhondda. And why is this so interesting and so important? And why is this site so enigmatic? It's because you can still see these Iron Age walls. You can still walk amongst the Iron Age buildings like you can at the village at Holyhead. There's an Iron Age village at Holyhead. You can walk in amongst the buildings, but they've in the main been archaeologically excavated, right? And then when you go to the Peninsula, there's another beautiful site in the Clean Peninsula. And you could just see the walls with that. But these walls have, in the main, never been archaeologically excavated. And this is the magic of planned areas of Cymru, that you can touch the stones, and they've never been dug out by archaeologists. They're as they had been, as they were left over 2,000 years ago. Some say that this settlement was still being used about 400 AD, and then it was abandoned. But that's 1,600 years ago. Still a very, very long time ago. It's a lovely, beautiful site. But some of these images that we've seen tonight, we won't be visiting, we won't be visiting some of the sites, such as this one. It's a shame that we don't have 80 weeks to do this, because we could have gone in great detail. But we could do this in the future when we do another course. And when you go there, they've it's marked on the, people take a photograph of this and they say, this is where there was a hearth, or this is where there was something else. It's probably like an early Iron Age dresser, actually, where there would have been very similar to the dressers that you see on the Orcadian sites, like Skara Brae. And you've got these weird little features with this wonderful site, Blaen Rhondda, in my Rhondda Valley. And why have I chucked this in here? I thought, losing our past, St. Mary's Welby. One of the other reasons for doing this series of lectures is that some of the sites that we will see, I know this is a Second World War site, but some of the sites that we will be looking at won't be there in a few decades' time. They'll have eroded away. Yeah, they will have disappeared. And I wanted to chuck this in here because this is St. Mary's Welby, which is between Sully and Penarth. And there's a house behind it, and there's lots of little remains and stuff. And Archaeology Cymru have been recording this landscape. And this pillbox has just collapsed in the last month or so. It's just collapsed, and because of this collapsing, and the sea wall in front of it's just gone. It's just been, there must have been really high water level recently, and it battered all this, and all that's going to erode away. And what we have is we've got Iron Age sites, very important Iron Age sites, such as Nash Point, which there's very little left of it. And again, it's good to highlight that we've got these wonderful sites, but they're not all going to be there in a few years' time. So in a way, this little series of lectures is a little bit of a tribute to some of those sites. Now, if I had your mics on, I would invite you all to work out where this was, and you're not going to. And there's a little bit of archaeology here. Right now, this is actually at Dinas Powys. This is not at Dinas Powys Castle. This is at Dinas Powys Hill Fort, which isn't a hill fort at all. And when you go to this site, and I think Rosamond's been to this site with me, and Peter's been to this site with me as well. When you go to this site, you find all these really weird old trees. And some of these trees are really tall, because you're looking down there and you're looking about 10, 20, 30 meters down there, looking at the landscape. In places it's a lot higher than that. And you're looking at this and thinking, why are these trees so tall? And the reason why these trees are so tall is because at one time there would be a vast vista of trees. And that tree itself is an ash tree. And because there was loads of ash trees, the trees got taller and taller to try and get light, and they would go taller and taller. And these little skills that you can learn as an archaeologist help you understand how changes occurred in the landscape. Just a little fact there that I'll chuck away. If you go into a field and there's a big fat tree in the middle of the field, right? It's not very tall. It is really fat. That tells you that trees haven't grown around that tree for a very, very long time. And that's why it's really fat. If you've got a really tall tree standing in the middle of the field, really tall and slender, and there's no other trees around it, that's proof that at one point in time, that tree was part of a big woodland, and now it's no longer part of a great big woodland. We haven't got actually many slides left now, but we've got this, and we've got that. Ooh, what is that? This, I told you we would do northeast Cymru. This is near Chirk Castle, near Llangollen. And this is known as the Elysig Pillar. And the Elysig Pillar in the 1600s, according to Edward Llwyd in the late 1600s, he said that there was an inscription on here all over it. And the inscription read, it was associated with a native Welsh king, a native king of Cymru. And there was an inscription all over it. And because it was left out in the atmosphere, and because it's made of sandstone, all the inscription is now gone. This is the great tragedy. An inscribed stone pillar associated with the Elysig is now eroded away. And actually, I would like to tell you a little bit about the Elysig Pillar, but not tonight. And this, what is this? Can you tell me what this is, Goff?
I'm not a clue.
This is one of two trees at Croggan. This is one of the Croggan oaks. These are the trees at the gate of the dead. And I went there, and you know what? The Croggan oak tree itself, the wonderful Croggan oak tree, this one and the other one are over 1,000 years old. And when you look at images, it only shows the one oak tree. It never shows this one. So when you're looking at guidebooks and it says, there's this here, always look around the corner for something else. And we'll be looking at this in a few weeks' time as well. But before we see another last image of the Croggan oak, this is coming back to something we mentioned at the beginning. This is on the Gower Peninsula. I had to chuck something in for the Gower Peninsula. This is a stone of Arthur. This is a stone of King Arthur. Arthur's stone. It's nothing to do with King Arthur at all. It's believed that two giants were having a fight one day, and one giant threw a pebble out of his shoe, and it landed on the Gower Peninsula. But this is a very old Neolithic monument, and I haven't mentioned much about the Neolithic period, so I thought I would towards the end. We've got a very rich Neolithic landscape, and we can look at Tinkinswood Burial Chamber. We can look at Pentre Ifan. We can look at Bryncellyddu on Holyhead. We can look at these sites, and I think you'll hear a little bit more about that in another lecture. And we can't do a lecture like this without showing you a building from St. Fagans. This is my favourite building from St. Fagans. This is the pigsty from St. Fagans. I absolutely love this structure. And I remember years ago, I went with my family and I took a photograph with all my children here, and it was it was wonderful. And St. Fagans, I feel now has come better. You got more of an experience of the true landscape of Cymru. and with the exhibition. And I'm so pleased that Martin said about that tree from the Rhondda up near Castell Nos being on display. Well, one of them anyway. And St. Faggus is always well worth a visit. And this is one of, I'm just double checking something a minute. That's it. Hang on. Now that's the tree. I actually climbed up the tree and I was actually standing in there, and it was a brilliant view. And I actually thought this tree is a lot more impressive than that tree, but that's the one that you see on the internet about the Croggan oak, the tree at the gate of the dead, right? And I actually thought it meant actually the trees, because there's another one, the trees. There's two of them. This oak is in a really good state of preservation. It's a wonderful oak tree, and you've got to imagine that when we look at the landscape, the trees very much play a role in the past. They're living and breathing vehicles or vessels, time capsules of what the landscape was once like, because there were many trees like this. It's said that these oak trees and yew trees, there were many more hundreds, if not thousands, of these trees before the Second World War that were hundreds, if not 1,500 years old. Lots of them have been cut down since, but this Croggan oak and this other Croggan oak are still there to be seen today. And I didn't know this was there because I was looking for the other one. And I had to get to this one first to get to the other one. And I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. There's two of them. Well worth the money in driving all the way up to this part of northeast Wales, near Llangollen, Chirk Castle. So what I'd like to do now is I would like to stop screen sharing, look at this tree for a moment while I have a sip. I'm going to turn off the images. And I thank profusely Pat for finding the error of my ways in not using that set of technology. I'm going to put all your mics on and we can have 5 minutes of questions. I've got, so here we go. Unmute all. Right. Let's have you all on the screen. And who would like to talk first? Goff.
I was wondering what language they were speaking when we were talking about 700 CE. What language were they speaking? What were they speaking?
They would have been speaking a very early tongue, a very early Welsh tongue. I've actually got
Celtic.
I've got Middle English, and I've got the early Welsh tongue. We don't really know. We don't really know its development. But the one thing is that we do have one or two carved stones, and we've got some very early Welsh text going all the way from about the 5 to 6, 7, 800s. So we see that development, and there's a it's a developmental language, and you chuck a bit of Latin in there and so on and so on. It's like any language. You would not really be able to recognize it if you're a Welsh speaker today, but you'd be able to recognize some words. I think that's a good answer to the question.
Okay.
Pete.
Well, it's just one of the Celtic languages, but the spread of the Celtic languages throughout the world are so similar that it's almost amazing that the Celtic language in Italy, in Spain, in the Basque region, in Brittany, in Scotland and Wales, they're all so similar.
And that is a good point. If you want to talk about Britishness, it's like that sense of Britishness. It's all that, it's all that European thing, and you got the disconnection, and you see that with what you've just said. Good way of putting it. Rosamond.
So was it Howldar with the coin?
Howldar.
Yes.
We'll look at the laws of Howldar as well. But obviously, on another occasion. So yes.
Okay.
What about you, Del?
Oh, it's been good. It's been interesting. I mean, I've worked up the Rhondda, but I knew about the Iron Age ruins or remains, but some of the other stuff I didn't know about.
And there's
so
lots
that's
of it.
quite interesting. Yes, and you were right that I've been to St. Peter's Church.
Good, good. Do you know what? Right, I can't do Martin yet. Gareth, what about you? I can't hear you, Gareth.
Gareth's mic is broke, Carl.
Oh, right. So, Gareth, did you enjoy that today? Thumbs up or down? Oh, I got 2 thumbs. I can't beat that. What about you, Ellie? Anything you want to say, contribution to make?
No, I don't have any questions. I don't think that was a really good overview, and it was really interesting to hear about it all. And thank you.
And I hope hopefully see you next week. And what about you? What about you, Martin? Have your 12th penneth.
Thank you for showing the Rhondda. The delights. There's lots more to the Rhondda as well, Del. There's lots more archaeological sites of Rhondda which haven't been recorded and shown, and we've found quite a few of them, Carl, you know that.
No, that's good.
Just a bit more on Blaen Rhondda Iron Age site. It's actually the largest undefended Iron Age site in southeast Wales, and it's called Hendra Mynydd, and it's just a stone's throw from the lake Cleanvawr, where the Cleanvawr hoard was found, and the Cleanvawr hoard is also on display in St. Fagans, and that's the earliest example of Iron Age swordsmanship and metalwork in Britain. Latin,
exactly. And okay, I might be convinced to do a bit more of that Blaen Rhondda site. I might be. I really appreciate that. And what about you, Pam?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was really good.
Good.
Yeah, it's my sort of thing, this one, and I did travel a bit.
Good, good. And
Yeah,
you were with me at St. Peter's.
I was.
You were,
I've
and it was a
still
delight.
got the shells of your nuts in my pocket.
I've still got your. Hang on, I've got my nuts in your pocket.
The shells of your nuts in my pocket.
This is what I thought you said. Right, let's move on. Have you got anything to say, Pat?
I was glad on Castle Drisline because my daughter Bethan lives on the street called Bryn Drisline, and I never knew where the Drisline came from. So
now you know. So it was well worth you coming. So
very interesting.
Thank you very much. Do you know what? Right, I was in a way I was I thought, right, this is going to either work tonight or it's not going to work, and it has. I would like to thank you all joining us tonight. Anyone that wants a quick chat afterwards about anything can. In a short while, we'll be saying goodbye to those that need to go and want to go and so on. And I would like to mention those that are joining my archaeology classes tomorrow. Del, Pat and Pam and Goff. I look forward to seeing you and Peter on Tuesday, and Rosamond seeing you as well. Those that are coming on, those that are joining me on who amongst this group, who's actually joining me on Saturday? Goff, yeah?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Del?
Yeah.
Yeah. Martin?
I'll have to let you know, and I can't, we don't know yet.
You let me know as well, Gareth. If you put a payment through, then I know you're doing it. Ellie, I know you're signed up as well. Pam might be doing
another one.
Yeah, and obviously Pat. So, well, in fact, I'll send an invite to most of you anyway. So, if no,
Carl, my other daughter's coming on Saturday as well.
Why did you have your whole family doing it?
Well, I'm working on them.
No, delight to see her as well.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to say on behalf of Archaeology Cymru, thank you for making this lecture very rewarding and worthwhile. And it's been an absolute delight. I've really appreciated your time, and you've all been really sensible. I couldn't have asked for anything better tonight. Really, really look forward to next Wednesday. A lot of images of castles, trying to understand castles, and not those normal ones. Those that need to go, I'm going to say good night to those that need to go. So those that want to say, stay, but I'm going to say good night to Goff, Rosamond.
Good night. See you on
Thank you
tomorrow.
very much, Carl. Very
Good
interesting
night.
evening.
Good flag,
Bye.
Dale.
Martin.
All right.
Bye.
Good night.
So good night,
Good
guys.
night.
Anyone who wants to stay, then just hang on. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
See you in the town hall tomorrow.
Well done. So, right, who wants to chat about something? Who wants a chat? It's a shame, Gareth. Mike's not blooming working, isn't it?
Yeah, Gareth's got lots of knowledge about Welsh history, Carl. He could absolutely add loads to this. Just nod your head, Gareth.
Well, Casters Mike, we need your input next week on that one because that's a really dodgy one.
Gareth's got some good work to show you, Carl. He's going to send you soon. I won't tell you too much on it yet, but he's got some delights to show you. Just one question. Where's John tonight? Where's John?
Peter, do you want to ask where John is tonight?
Not particularly.
Have you banned him, Peter? Is he gone, is he?
No, he's only allowed to do the Tuesday evening because we can tolerate him on a Tuesday evening. Barely.
Yeah.
Is that a good... Peter, don't let me say this. Is that a good, you know...
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Right, well, I'm off. Thanks for tonight. Peter, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Gareth and Martin.
Yeah, go. Yeah,
all the best.
Bye.
All the best. No.
Bye.
Diolch yn fawr i chi. Ar ferhog iawn. Oh, Peter, I didn't think you were going to join us.
I had trouble trying to get in, to be honest with you.
But you are a Skype you are a Skype obsessive. You love Skype, which is fair enough because you used it. How have you found this technology tonight?
Oh, this is fine. This is good. I just had a job getting into it.
Yeah, it is a bit of a job to start off with. Yeah. So we had somebody signed up and paid from America, and he didn't join us. I don't know where. It's a bit of a shame, really, but that was more or less everybody. So yeah, so that was great.
That was been quite good, I must admit.
Good. So it's up to you. It's up to you what you want to do. If you want to sign up for the course or you want to do £6 for tonight, it's up to you.
Well, it's £6 a night.
Actually, do you know I haven't worked this out? It's I don't know.
£30, isn't it, for the sessions?
It's £30 for the 8.
Right, so I'll pay you the £30.
I want to work out what that is. So
8 and a 30 don't go.
By paying £30, the lessons are £3.75 each. Bloody hell, I'm losing out there.
Yes.
No, well, to be honest with you, lots of people are doing. You know, I don't think John actually gets it.
No.
You know, Michelle said to me, she said, "Why didn't you just get rid of him? Because he's just he really pissed everybody off on one evening with the ghost talks."
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, you only have to remember what he said about the Cornwall trip. Below the rest of it, we'll go on our own, sort of thing.
Please don't remind me about that. Yeah, he would have, right? It wasn't once, it wasn't twice, it was more than once. He said it. I thought it was a joke to begin with, then it was serious, and I just got I was looking at Michelle and saying, I am not going. At one stage, it was like one person had dropped out, and I thought, right, all right, then we'll still go. But then it was like, yeah, 5 people dropped out, and he was saying, oh, we still got to do it. And I thought, no. It's not.
I just tried to show you something. I got something to show you in a minute once I find it.
Not your fucking breasts. I can see them.
No, it's a letter from Donald Trump.
What is it? What, to you?
No, to Rick Rescorla.
Yeah, go on. Is he the Lord Mayor of New York?
No. Can you see this?
All right, yeah. What does it say?
It says, the President requests the pleasure of your company on the occasion of the presentation of the Presidential Citizens Medal to Richard Cyril Roscola, to be held at the White House on Thursday, November the 7th, 2019. That's what it says there. There's the medal. Can you see the medal?
Hardcore. What has he done then?
Well, he saved 2,700 people from the Twin Towers.
In the tower, right, yeah.
But he's from Cornwall, you see, he's from Hale.
Oh, right.
And I've been chatting to a chap in Hale, and he showed me these, because he got the copy of these. And this says, hardcore, leave no man behind, presented by the President Donald Trump to Rick Roscola.
That's great. Well, saving one life is worthy of that medal. Not that many's just, yeah.
Well, yeah. But the trouble was, he went back in then for stragglers.
And he died.
And the tower collapsed, and everybody, all that were left, actually died. But so apparently, he was singing as he was bringing people out, going up Camber Hill, coming down. That's one of the songs from Cornwall that he was actually singing at the time when he was bringing people out.
Yeah. So where does the medal go then? To his family?
His wife went and collected the medal on his behalf.
Oh, that's fab.
Yeah.
Fab.
But there we are.
There you are. No, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. So on that note, Pete,
Yep.
Michelle told me not to do 3 lectures in the same day, which I have. She's banned me from doing 3 on a Wednesday, so I'm going to do 1 on a Friday now.
Oh, right.
Because I got 2 tomorrow.
Do as you're told.
Do you know what, right? I do something and she said, I never told you to do that. Yeah, but you did. No, I didn't. Don't you accuse me of telling you to do that. And I said, but you told me to do it. I told her about this. I said, Michelle, I have told Richard, right, that we have our class on a Wednesday morning on a Friday. And she said, what did you do that for? I say, because you told me to. She said, no, I didn't. I didn't tell you to move it to a Friday. And I'm thinking, what? You did. Have you had those discussions with women, Pete?
Oh, many, many years ago. Sadly, I haven't.
Yeah, I know. But they're still in your mind, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. So that's it.
Most impressed with you tonight.
What's that?
Most impressed with you tonight was that PowerPoint presentation. When you go to, you either have the things on the side. If you go to screen show, then you get the full stream.
And that's what you had tonight.
Yeah, that's right.
But
that's what I always did with a PowerPoint presentation when I did it down at Bridgend and Lantwit.
Good. But you also had me in a little top-hand corner, did you?
Yes, you were on. Yeah, all the names were down on that corner. On the right-hand corner, right-hand side, there was a strip down the side with all the names on, and the ones that had their camera on, you could see them.
What, throughout the lecture?
Yes, yeah. Only a little small spare.
Right, no, that's good. That's good. I didn't know that. I'll watch it back. Can I just, Pete? I've suddenly realised that this is working well for loads of different reasons. Doing this stuff online, right? The biggest problem is that I've got is that when we start back, I'm not going to be able to. Half of the people ain't going to be able to come to classes anyway.
No.
So I don't even think I should be starting back until everybody's able to join it.
Well, you can't start back yet anyway until this is all over.
No, what I'm being told is it might until there's a vaccine, right? Sandra's not going to be able to leave the house, and nor about. We've got about 40 plus people on our books, and I think about 20 of them won't be able to leave their houses until there's a vaccine.
I've left my house on a couple of occasions.
Because you've had to
pop down to High Street to get food. I've had to pop downtown to get my bills.
Yeah.
I had to pop down to the bank to pay in a check that we had for Flat Home. I've had the check a month, so I had to pop down and pay that in.
Yeah.
But when you go to these places, you have to queue and you have to stand, 2 meters apart, and they let one at a time in.
Yeah, I know.
I ordered all my meat online from Hopkins and Butchers down in High Street.
Oh, he delivered it, did he?
No, I ordered it online.
Yeah.
And then the next day they rang me and said, or text me and said, it's okay, it's ready to be picked up. And you drive down, you stop outside the shop, shout your name out, and they bring it out in a bag, put it on a table on the pavement, and they go back into the shop, and you get out of the car and pick it up and go. So you don't actually come in contact with anybody.
So you pay for it online, do you or something?
Pay for it online, yeah, PayPal, yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So I had a minted lamb steak for my tea today.
Even though I'm a vegetarian, it still sounds nice.
Oh, it is nice. It is nice.
It does. I believe what's going to happen is that the trip to Devon and Cornwall will go ahead. However, it looks like the pandemic's going to return in October, and so that's the only time we're going to be able to do it.
I'm hoping to get down there in my motorhome this year sometime.
Well, you can follow us, and you can follow us when we do the trip then.
I'll have my motorbike on the back, so I'll be able to tear around after you.
Yeah, well, if I won't be driving my car, but yeah, I'm sure you'll be safe with. No, you won't be safe with Chris's driving. You've seen how fast he drives sometimes. God, happy days. Anyway, Pete, I gotta love you and leave you, and I'll see you next Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, I'll see you then.
Now brush yourself up so you have it a bit tidy like you were tonight.
I won't be doing that though.
What?
My God, Pete! There's no wax. There's no melted wax anywhere.
Oh. Well,
how does that work?
The wax is supposed to burn, isn't it?
Yeah, but usually you get a load of wax building up.
Well, unless it's got a well in it.
Yeah, but it's not going anywhere anyway.
Oh, right. Oh.
Totally. There's no line. Anyway, Pete, I'm gonna dash. No, fuck off with this fucking flag. You can help me out with one last thing. What?
What did you say?
Fuck off with your flag. One last thing. You know that guy you spoke to, Paul Holmes, down in Cornwall?
Yeah.
What was the conversation you had with him? I don't need to know the conversation, but did you tell him that we had cancelled the trip for April?
I did tell him we'd cancelled the trip, yeah.
Right, so I don't really need to give him a call, but I'll give him a call anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, but I asked him for, if he was still teaching, but and he gave me the name of another bloke and gave me a telephone number which didn't connect. So I probably need to contact him again, and there's probably a digit wrong on the telephone number they gave me.
Well, you'll be seeing him anyway in September, so don't worry.
Well, okay, yeah.
He won't be getting out of it.
I've been chatting to this other chap who gives a talk every afternoon. Trevor Smitheram, and he gives a talk every afternoon on various subjects from down in Cornwall, and he was the one that gave me the poems, in the days of Tanners and Bobs and things like that.
you mind me asking how much does he charge?
He doesn't charge.
Oh right, okay, fair enough.
It's just on Facebook. He doesn't charge.
All right, it's on Facebook. Oh, fair enough. Then that's okay. It's good.
Yeah, yeah. And I've given him a couple of poems that he's going to use next week. The one from the island, sleeping on an island and things like that.
Actually, you know, that's a good thing. In the break on a bloody thingamajig, instead of having John moaning like fuck, right? Read your poems.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah, I got one for next Tuesday for Ironside. Daffodils of Wordsworth.
Ah.
I wandered lonely as a cloud.
Yes. Keep going.
I'm trying to remember it now.
But you've also got you know, there's Ulverston. There's is it Stan Laurel? Is it Charlie Chaplin? I think Stan Laurel or Charlie Chaplin's got a link with Ulverston. There's in the museum. There's a.
All right.
Is it Laurel and Hardy Museum or Charlie Chaplin Museum in Ulverston? Ask them next week, and then you can do some of their work.
Oh right, yeah.
You know, comedy's quite poetic, as you know. So.
Oh yes, absolutely, yeah.
It's good. It's good. So.
I always try and use a bit of humour with my talks, and a bit of humour always seems to have gone down so well that it cheers everybody up and gets people laughing.
Yeah.
Invariably.
The problem is, you know, I teach 8 different lectures, right? So
yeah,
I've got a 1-to-1 with Richard, right? So you know, we that's different, but so obviously the three main Archaeology Cymru ones I do, where it's the style that you see.
Yeah,
The ghost evening is right. I want everyone's mics off. You're not gonna have much time to talk. I'm only doing this for an hour and I'm going, right?
Yeah.
So that's the attitude of that one. This one is more that it's on a different level, as you can tell. And I've got another one, which I've got a couple of children in the afternoon on a Wednesday afternoon, that it's quite chatty and whatever. And you just can't have one format.
Yeah. Well, I've only got the three lectures that I do.
Yeah.
And which I've done to your people is the Flat Home, the Milford defences, and the Palmerston forts.
But it's about time you researched another one.
Well, probably yes, but
you were going to do one on the Wehrmacht Railway, but have you got enough material?
Well, the Wehrmacht Railway, there's not a great deal on that. It's the fact that it was used in the German trenches in the First World War, and then brought to the UK and was used in the Second World War on Flatholm, Steepholm, Lavenock, and Breen Head. They used the Wehrmacht Railway. The fascinating thing on Breen Head, there's an arrow, a big concrete arrow, an enormous thing, which was put there during the Second World War, that points directly towards Inkley Point.
What? That went over my head.
It points directly to Inkley Point.
Why?
The big arrow is on the ground. It must be 10 meters long by about 5 meters wide. It's an arrow. Why? I don't know.
That's what I'm asking you.
Well, I don't know yet because I've seen it, and I know it's there, but I don't know why. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, of course it don't make sense. I thought you knew.
No.
Oh wow, wicked! It's a lightsaber. Yeah. Anyway, I thought
it was your sonic screwdriver.
I got one upstairs actually. Anyway, I will.
Okay. Yeah.
How's that work? Yeah, you can see it now. Anyway, Pete, thanks for that. I will see you on Tuesday.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Goodbye. Ta-da.
Take care, Pete. Night. Bye.
Night. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Leave meeting.